Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is JonHut and today I want to share with you my favorites effects. But before we jump in the computer, I just have to let you know that most of these plugins are not free. So if you want to know at least with the free versions of most of these plugins, then stay tuned to my upcoming videos. And with that said, let's right into my favorites effects. Okay, let's have a look to my favorites effects. As you can see, I divided by 7 different categories. We have Equalizers, Compressor, PreAmp, Reverb and Delay, Modulation, Saturation and Tools. Let's start with Equalizer. The first one is a FabFilter Pro Q3. Almost every producer knows about this parametric EQ. I basically use to cut or boost some frequencies and also to fix some resonance. And I often use it as a dynamic EQ just to make a space between my drums and the music. The next one is an API equalizer. There is 2 versions, the A and a B version. Basically, the A version, I use it if I need to cut or boost high or low frequencies. And the B version, I use it if I need to be a little bit more specific with the sound that I'm looking for. I really like how this EQ sounds on my kick drum. And is also good if you want to get a little bit of analog sensitivity. Next one, a PugTech. Another famous EQ is a good if you want a natural sound and add fatness and punch on your bass or drums. SSL EQ, which is good for a gentle tonal shift and smooth sounds. I mainly use it on the drum or music bass. And then we have EQ Citral and Psy EQ. Both are pretty similar. Psy EQ by Soundtoys and EQ Citral 295 by Arturia. Both of them are based on a German EQ Siemens W295B. It's a very gentle and musical EQ. I also use it on my basses. Let's have a listen to some examples of how I use these equalizers. Let's start with FabFilter Pro Q3 and API on my kick drum. Next one, let's have a listen to the PugTech on my bass. Next one, SSL EQ on the drums group. And last, EQ Citral on my plugs group. Now let's have a look to a compressor and limiters. Let's start with FabFilter. We have FabFilter Pro C2, FabFilter Pro MB, and FabFilter Pro L2. The Pro C2, I use it when I need a detailed and specific compression on the sound. The Pro MB is a multiband compressor. I basically use it on my bass or on my master. And the Pro L2, which is my favorite limiter. Next one, we have Abbey Road RS124. Is a tube compressor which adds character. It's really good on the bass. It adds presence and a smooth sound. Next one, we have API compressor. It's a VCA compressor and I really like how it sounds on my drums. Then we have the DBX160, another VCA compressor, really good for the drums. I mainly use it for a parallel compressor. Then we have a CLA2A, is an optical compressor. Is really good for transparent compression. Next one, CLA76. This is one of the most famous FET compressor. Is really good if you need aggressive compression and you're looking for a quick attack. As a quick tip, the blue side is really good for vocals and high percussion. Then we have an SSL compressor, which I use on my master. Is really good to glue the sound. Then we have a Shadow Hill mastering compressor. This is a really good dual compressor which have an optical and VCA compressor. I use it on my bass or on my masters. Then we have the L2 Ultra Maximizer. This is a limiter which I basically use to control the peaks when the snare hit together with my kick drum. And last, we have a Devil Lock by Soundtoys, which is based on a Shure level lock. It's really good if you are looking for a super aggressive and massive sound. And now let's have a listen to some examples of how I use these compressors. Let's start with Abbey Road RS124 and CLA2A on my bass. Next one, let's have a listen to the API and DBX on my drums group. Now let's have a listen to the SSL compressor on my master bass. And now Shadow Hill mastering compressor on my music bass. Next one, Devil Lock on a percussion. Let's have a listen to the FabFilter Pro MB and FabFilter Pro L2 on my master. Let's have a look to the preamps. We have a tape Melofy, which have two sections, a preamp and a tape. Is really good if you are looking for a lo-fi sound. I use it on drums, keyboards, pads, etc. Then we have a Pre-1973, which is based on a Neve 1073, is a really good preamp to warm up the signal. And last we have Radiator by Soundtoys, which is based on the classic Altec 1567 8-tube mixer. Is really good on drums and bass. And now let's have a listen to some examples of how I use these plugins. Let's start with the tape Melofy on my chords group. Next one, Radiator on the bass. Let's have a look to the reverbs and delay. Let's start with Valhalla Vintage Verb. This is my go-to reverb. Then we have a Rip plate by Arturia. This is my favorite plate reverb. We also have Rev Intensity by Arturia, which I use it for a sound design. It's a really good reverb with a lot of extra features like the envelope follower and the function section. Then we have Abbey Road plate, is another really good plate reverb, and I use it mainly for vocals. As a delay, we have H delay. This is my go-to for a basic delays. I also have Echo Boy by Soundtoys, which I use it for a sound design and if I need a specific delay. I also have Delay Eternity, which I use when I need a dual serial delay, and it also have an amazing beat crusher effects built on it. And the last two are Crystallizer by Soundtoys and Fragments by Arturia. Both of them are really good if you are looking for a granular processing. You can create an amazing ambience and experimental texture with these plugins. And now let's have a listen to some examples of how I use these plugins. Let's start with Valhalla Vintage Verb, H delay and Fragments on the piano. And now let's have a listen to the Echo Boy on my percussion grab. Let's have a look to the modulation. I have a chorus dimension D, which is based on a Roland chorus. I also have a chorus June 6, which is based on the iconic Juno effect. Next one, a flanger BL20 by Arturia. This is my favorite flanger. Then we have a micro shift by Sound Toys, which is based on Eventide H3000 and AMS DMX 1580. It's basically a widening effect. Then we have Real ADT, which is a doubler effect with plenty of controls to help you find the sound that you are looking for. And then we have a Tremolator by Sound Toys, which is a tremolo and auto gate effect. And now let's have a listen of some examples of how I use these plugins. Let's start with the Dimension D on my clap. Now let's have a listen to the flanger BL20 on my snare. Now let's have a listen to the micro shift on the bass. Now let's have a look to the saturation. Let's start with the J37. This is my favorite tape plugin and is based on an Abbey Road tape machine. This tube culture by Arturia is a bulb saturation based on the iconic Ultra Filter. Next one, we have Black Box by Brainworks, which is another incredible bulb saturation. Then I have my favorite one, which is Decapitator by Sound Toys. It basically have 5 saturation in one plugin. The A button is based on an Ampex 350. The E button is based on a Chandler EMI TG channel. The N button is based on a Neve 1057 input channel. And the T and P are based on the Thermionic Kulturbultur saturator. The T is with the triode setting and the P is with the pentode setting. Next one, I have Abbey Road saturator, which have 2 types, a TG12345 solid state tone or a red console tube. The cool thing about this saturator is that you can excite the signal with the compander, which means basically expansion. It's a really good saturator. And last, we have the MDMX pack from Waves, which basically have a fuzz, an overdrive, and a screamer. And now let's have a listen some examples of how we use these plugins. Let's start with the Decapitator on the cymbals and bass. Now let's have a listen to the Abbey Road saturator on my clap and snare groups. And last, let's have a listen to the J37 tape on the master. And now let's have a look to my tools. The first one is Ozone Imager 2, which I use as a stereoscope to check that my stereo levels are on the right place. I also use Stereoscope by Melda Production if I need a little bit more extra details. Then I have an Oscilloscope by Melda Production. Next one, a Reference 2 by Mastering the Mix. This is my go-to plugin when I need to reference my sounds. I also use a BX Solo by Brainworks just to check the mid or the sides on my master. I also use it as a monomaker or stereo width. The next one, Oscillos Megascope by Stulz Audio. This is my favorite oscilloscope by far, and the cool thing about this plugin is that it automatically syncs every instance on your project. Then I have my Analyzer, Unspec, and Span, both of them by Boxengo. And the last, a Sound ID reference by Sonarworks. This is the software that I use to correct my room in terms of audio issues. I highly recommend that you check out this software. And the last plugin that I want to show you is Shaperbox 3 by Cable Guys. Shaperbox is an incredible tool for rhythmic inspiration, musical motion, and mixing. Let's have a listen of some examples of how I use Shaperbox on my sounds. Okay, that's all for me. Hope you like and learned something from this video. If you have any question, please leave a comment below and I will see you in the next video, which is gonna be my favorites instrument. Thank you very much for watching. My name is JonHut.